George Gershwin's 1934 song Summertime is one of those jazz standards that's really permeated popular culture and is still widely known and played to this day. Now in today's lesson we're going to take a look at 3 different ways in which you can play the chords for this tune. Google a chart for this tune and you will come up with so many different variations and different ways to approach playing the chords to this tune, because jazz standards evolve over time. What once might have been a basic song, someone sticks in some nice substitutions, they become the norm, and someone else adds to that, and what was once a basic progression can suddenly become something which is much more complex. And we're going to look at 3 different ways to do it, from simple to more advanced. Because when you play this with someone else at a jam or a gig, you can guarantee that they will have their own take or way of playing the chords. So it's good to be aware of some of the different possibilities that can take place. We're going to look at it in the guitar-friendly key of A minor. Now, the chart that I'll put on the screen is available to download for free over at my website, jazzguitarwithandy.com, under the standards section, so be sure to grab that. If you're new here, my name's Andy and I do jazz guitar lessons every Wednesday and Saturday. To truly understand what's happening in any standard, we need to know what key we're in and what chords we could expect to find in that key. So on the screen, here's the chords in the key of A minor. So just taking the chords and harmonising them as sevenths, we'd expect A minor 7 chord 1, B minor 7 flat 5 chord 2, C major 7 chord 3, D minor 7 chord 4. Now chord 5, if you actually harmonise the minor scale you get E minor 7, but more often than not we're going to get E7 instead, because it has a stronger pullback to 1. F major 7 chord 6, and then chord 7, G7, and then back to A minor. So those are our chords with our Roman numerals. So on to version 1, this, if you like, is a very vanilla way of playing these changes. So chord shapes you're going to need for this version: A minor 6, E7/B. We're going to need A minor/C. We're going to need A minor 7. We're going to need B minor 7 flat 5. C major 7, E7 flat 9, and E flat diminished 7th, B7, and D minor. So believe it, I know that's a lot of chords, but believe it or not, this is a relatively simple version, sort of based on sort of earlier versions of the song. So here's the chart, and here is the progression. First line, moving to D minor, so the 4 chord. Third line. Fourth line. So this version has nice movement in the bass, which on some of the really early versions, I think the early Louis Armstrong version has. So let's go through what's happening harmonically. So it's a 16 bar form, and on the chart I've evened it out so there's 4 bars on each line just to make it easier. We've got chord 1, A minor 6 to E7/B. I've made it a minor 6 because I really think it's, you know, a lot of the early versions use that sound. That's line 1, so it's just going 1 5 1 5 1 5 1 5 1. Then line 2, D minor chord 4, a little passing diminished chord, which is a nice movement into the E7. Then it's B7. Why is it there? It's out of key because it's the 5 of 5, so it's the dominant of E7, so it's a secondary dominant. Third line, back to 1 5. But at the end of the line, instead of staying on A minor, we're going to go D7, which is curious. You'd expect a G chord next, but it goes C major 7, so it moves to the relative major. So that's C major 7 is a relative of A minor. Back to 1, A minor. Then a 2 5 in A minor. So it's the minor 7 flat 5 chord, chord 2. E7 flat 9, you can just play an E7 there, just a bit more interest. Then back to E7/B. Then I put in this nice turnaround, A minor/C, back to E7/B. That's a nice sort of thing to start with, or loop, pick, or vamp. Depends what speed you're playing this song. I typically play it a bit slower. That's a nice little movement there. So this version, it's only basic obviously if you know those chords, but compared to other versions that we're going to do later, there's less going on. But it's some nice movement because of these inversions of the E7 chord. So instead of having an E in the bass like there, we've got B in the bass, which creates a sound, which for me in some of those early versions is just fantastic. And the 6 just adds loads more character. So that's our first way of playing the changes. Version 2 requires from you a few other chord shapes. We've got A7/C sharp. We've got a D minor like this. We've got a D minor/C, or D minor 7/C, really, like this. And we've got a B flat 7. Version 2 builds on the first way we've just done there. And how does it do it? Well, we use a few inversions, and we're going to use a few more secondary dominants and tritone chords to make more interesting pulls and movements to chords. So here's the chart on the screen, version 2. Start again. So the couple little differences there were, at the end of the first line, instead of just staying on A minor or A minor 6 for a bar, we go A minor/C and then this secondary dominant A7/C sharp. So because the next chord is D minor, the fifth or the dominant chord of a D minor is an A7, so you can put that before a D minor if you want a nicer push into it, like that. So the 1, 5 does that 3 times. Then we do first inversion of A minor, then first inversion of A7, C sharp in the bass, which chromatically the bass is walked up from B to C sharp, now to D, then D minor/C for this nice descending bass line. We're going to keep descending, B minor 7 flat 5, then this B flat 7 is here because it's the tritone of E, it's a tritone sub of an E7. So it creates this, that second line goes D in the bass, C, B, then the B flat, which is going to be a nice walk down to the back to the A. And that's why we've got all that stuff there, just for nicer movements. But it's still 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, secondary dominant, 5th of D, chord 4 with the 7th in the bass, chord 2, chord tritone, so tritone sub, sort of, you know, that's a nice move back to the A minor 6 there. So onto my final version, version 3. It's a bit jazzier, a bit more advanced, a bit more going on, and there's a couple more shapes we need. We're going to need A minor 7, we're going to need A7 sharp 5, D minor 7 like this, G9 like this, C minor 7, F7, D minor 7 down here, root A, G7 root E, and then E7 sharp 9. So let's look at each line and analyse what's going on. We've got chord 1, A minor 7. So we've lost that 6, which, you know, we've gained a different character. It's different. I prefer the 6, but this is still nice. And then bar 2, 2, 5. So B minor 7 flat 5 to E7, which circles us back to 1. And then we're going to have a secondary dominant here. So A7. I'm going to make it a sharp 5 because that has a stronger pull to the 5 to the 4 chord D minor into line 2. So you get 1, 2, 5, 1, then secondary dominant, the 5 of D minor, line 2. Now in this second line we've got some ninth chords. We've got G9 and F9 for some sweet sounds, and we've got 2 5s. So we've got 2 5 in C, then a 2 5 in B flat, and then back to, this is 2 chord, and we'd expect an E7 next, but we're going to get the tritone sub instead, B flat 7 like we did in the previous version. So we've got 2 5 in C, which is the relative major of the key we're in, 2 5 down a tone, then the 2 chord, then the tritone. So that's nice so far. I'm playing with this kind of Latin vibe just because I like it. And back. Line 3, not so much is changing here. You've got the 1, 2, 5, 1, then the secondary dominant D. Now this is a non-functioning secondary dominant because you'd expect to go to a G chord there, wouldn't you? But we're going to a C major 7 in line 4. Line 4 being chord 3, relative major, C major 7, back to chord 1, and then we get this 2 5 from the relative major, so D minor 7, G7. But instead of going to a C, it deceptively goes back to the A, which is nice. So then at the end I put a E7 sharp 9 because that last bar is a great place to put a really tense chord for like a pedal on the bass, just for that sort of transition into the next time through. So which was your favourite of those 3 different ways of playing this classic song? And what are the benefits to knowing 3 different ways to play it? Well, for me it's about just being aware of different ways people can interpret a song. You go to a jam session and say you play it with someone else, they'll be sure to have some variation on what you do. So it's good to be aware of different possibilities. Also, if the first chart you started with is version 3, it's good to know from a soloing perspective what chords are non-essential you could take out, like the tritone subs and the inversions and secondary dominants. Some of them you don't necessarily have to think about them, and you can think about the basic way we started with if it makes it easier for soloing. And one thing you can do by knowing the chords in 3 ways is as you're playing it, you know, in one performance, you can add these variations to maybe increase the intensity as the song progresses, or responding to how someone is soloing over it by feeling like, I'm going to put that change in there because it sounds like it wants it. So good, you know, you need to listen for when they work well, obviously, but very good to have these things up your sleeve. For me, sometimes it's a very curious song in that it's almost too popular to play. If you called it at a jam session, someone would go, no, not that. Or if you called it you said put it in a set list for a gig, probably, I'm sure one of the band would be like, no, I can't do that. It is almost too popular to be played, but you can be sure that sometimes someone will request it, or even though it's too popular to be played, it's expected that you still know it, which is bizarre. Anyway, I really like it, and I don't play it live too often because of those reasons, because other people don't seem to want to play it so much. But it's a real classic, and I think it's a real accessible song that many people know, whether they're into jazz or not. It's also a testament to the fact that, you know, George Gershwin, whatever era he had lived in, he would have been an amazing songwriter. He'd have written songs for any age, and I think it's a timeless song. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Please leave me any comments or feedback on today's lesson. Be sure to grab that PDF over at my website. Hit that like button if you've gained value from it. If you've enjoyed today's lesson and you want to expand your jazz standard repertoire, then be sure to check out my playlist on jazz standard lessons like this, in which I cover the chords, the harmony, and how to solo over them. In my next video I will cover how to solo over Summertime, so be sure to tune in for that. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for jazz guitar lessons every Wednesday and Saturday. And as I said, if you've gained value out of this video, please hit that like button, leave me a comment, it really does help boost my channel. Anyway, I'll see you next time.